the elevator. That settled, I would like to first introduce myself. Allow me, Ikhlas Tawazun, to be the master of ceremony of today's Pulse Talk, creating safe online spaces and beyond, addressing online violence against women and girls. Her Excellency Gita Sabharwal, the United Nations Resident Coordinator in Indonesia, His Excellency Ahmad El Said, Regional Head of the UN Global Pulse Asia Pacific Hub, His Excellency Agung Indrajit, the Head of the Data System and Information for Development Planning of the Ministry of National Development Planning, Her Excellency Sondang Friska Simanjuntak, Vice Chairwoman of the National Commission on Violence Against Women, and Her Excellency Nenden Sekar Arum, Director of Southeast Asia Freedom of Expression Network, SafeNet. Distinguished speakers and all distinguished attendees, welcome to Pulse Talk. First of all, let's thank God Almighty for His blessing of health, time, and work so we can gather in this room today for Pulse Talk. Honorable ladies and gentlemen, Pulse Talk is a series of discussion on digital data and innovation relating to various development issues involving stakeholders from the public and private sectors and national and international stakeholders. Pulse Talk was initiated by the UN Global Pulse Asia Pacific and the Ministry of National Development Planning of the Republic of Indonesia since October last year. Pulse Talk consists of panel discussion sessions and interactive question and answer session. In this third edition, Pulse Talk raises the theme of online violence against women and girls and how to address it by creating safe online spaces and beyond. As we know, the advent of internet and increasing accessibility of the World Wide Web has increased online participation of men and women alike. However, similar to situations in the real world, there are also challenges of violence against women and girls online. The question is how to address this particular problem. Fortunately, to answer this question, we have present today the speakers that will discuss this issue and shine a light on the potential solutions. Before moving forward with the discussions, I would first invite Her Excellency Gita Sabharwal, UN Resident Coordinator in Indonesia, to give an opening remark on today's Pulse Talk. Your Excellency, the time and place is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Salamat siang. A pleasure to see everyone. You're all young people, right? I mean, you are the change makers, and you are the ones that are going to be making a difference, not just to Indonesia, but to the world, right? So thank you very much for coming. Let me welcome you to the Global Pulse office here in Indonesia. This is the Secretary General Innovation Hub for Asia and the Pacific. And Pa Agun, as you said, Global Pulse leverages data for knowledge, leverages strategic foresight, and behavioral science for accelerating SDGs. And they do that, and headed by Ahmed, they do that not just for Indonesia, but they do that for across the Asia Pacific. We want, and the Global Pulse here in Indonesia is supported with very, very kindly by the government of Indonesia through Bappenas. So thank you very much to Bappenas for the support that they offer to the Global Pulse. It's a pleasure to join you all today, this afternoon. And, all of you here are extremely critical, especially young people, as it is your tech savvy and can-do spirit that is going to be making a difference to the world. Your engagement is crucial, not just to raise awareness, but also for advancing collective action. Let me thank Bappenas for helping us with the Pulse Talk series. We look forward to many more of these in the future. The statistics, I was looking at the statistics, and the statistics are pretty worrying in many ways. It is estimated that globally almost 1 in 3 women have experienced violence in some form. This can have obviously very serious consequences, not only for the physical and mental well-being, but also on society, the economy, and the society. Troublingly, we are also seeing a surge of 300% in violence against girls and women in digital spaces. 300% surge. And that tells you the story, and that tells you why today's Pulse Talk focuses on this. And these figures only represent the cases that are reported. And as evidence tells us, and I'm sure Global Pulse knows this better than anyone else, that a very small percentage of cases tend to get reported. And that's the reason that you guys use big data. I mean, you are triangulating everything through big data. In 2022, the government of Indonesia had enacted a law. I think you call it the Sexual Violence Crime Law, which provides robust legal protection against sexual harassment online. The following year, and this is again data speaking, 1.9 million pieces of harmful online content were removed by the government of Indonesia. This was, I understand, in 1 year alone. And you can multiply that many more times to understand the amount of harmful content that is floating around on the internet. Simultaneously, initiatives such as SafeNet are offering platforms for victims to report online violence, along with advice for those seeking support. They are also leading a comprehensive digital literacy program, providing girls and women with the necessary knowledge and tools to navigate online spaces safely. This is crucial as almost all young people between the ages of 12 and 17 are using the internet. Yet, less than half of them have received information on how to navigate these spaces, online spaces, safely. At the same time, in a recent survey, nation survey, 500,000 young people in this age group reported experiencing sexual abuse or exploitation. So online spaces are largely being used for this. Due to the rapidly evolving nature of online spaces, we often, as the UN, amongst other development partners, play catch up in confronting online threats. To that end, UN Women, in partnership with the government, private sector, and civil society, are working to raise awareness, build capacities, and advocate for policy reforms. Dialogues are also going on, led by UN Global Pulse, for a joint UN offer to address these issues more comprehensively. Today's discussion, I believe, serves as a very important platform for amplifying our understanding of these intricate realities of online violence in the Indonesian context. In addition, they can also help us broaden the scope of interventions into related online risks, such as gambling. And Pagun, we know that Bappenas' study, amongst others, suggests that the country loses close to $20 billion every year due to gambling. This is another form of, and these forms are only going to increase. Often, those most at risk from this economic fallout are young people, women, girls. Ensuring that girls and women can thrive safely in online environments free of harassment, bullying, and violence is going to benefit the whole of society. This means that not only its victims, but everyone else is affected to some extent by online violence. So today is a very important step forward towards a safer online world for all of us. And I hope you join this discussion and make it useful for us and other development partners. Terima kasih. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your opening remark and setting the tone for today's discussion. For the second opening remark, I would like to invite Bapak Agung Indrajit, Head of Data System and Information for Development Planning of the Ministry of National Development Planning, to give his opening remark. Pak Agung, the time and place is yours.
Good day for everyone. Welcome to UN Global Pulse. Excellency, kita sama-sama dan koordinator for Indonesia, Excellency Ibu Saiman Al-Hafsi from UAE, His Excellency Ahmad El Said, Head of UN Global Plus, Honorable Ibu Sondang Friska Simanjuntak, selamat datang. Honorable Ibu Nenden Sekar Arum, panelists and colleagues, and also all the participants. Good afternoon. It's a great pleasure for me to be here today to welcome you all to UN Global Pulse and the third session of Pulse Talk. My colleague, Ibu Ayun, who's supposed to be here today, was scheduled to deliver opening remark also in other places. However, due to pressing commitment, I represent her to be with you all here. And I'm honored always to step in on her behalf, especially for data innovation, behavior analysis, digital transformation, and other important agenda with UN Global Pulse. For those who joining us for the first time, allow me to briefly introduce UN Global Pulse and the Pulse Talk. Pulse Talk is a collaborative initiative between UN Global Pulse, Asia Pacific, and Ministry of National Development Planning, Bappenas. For its inception, we envisioned that Pulse Talk should be a shared platform among us, not only Indonesian, but also for the whole Asia Pacific countries. We hope that YouTube will spreading this to Asia Pacific, that we hope initially, to come together to foster collaborative learning, especially in data innovation, AI, machine learning, behavior analysis, and strategic foresight. This is why, as you can see today, this is setting is, I think, it's very suitable for Pulse Talk. The participant and speaker come from a wide range. We always invited everyone that relevant and expert on the subject, both from institution, government ministry, agencies, civil societies, international organizations, including UN, and academic institution. We aim to create a house for all, a platform for all also. Inclusive is our principle, where diverse perspective comes together to change and to construct better world, and to give enrich our view on how to use digital and data for our life, and also for enhancing understanding and explore innovative solution for any challenge that we have, and also to identify and optimize our opportunity ahead. In our previous Pulse Talk edition, we explored the term of data and digital innovation, discuss data governance, examine the potential generative AI in Indonesia. However, we also have civil rights discussion before that, and we explore the benefit of digital technology, and it's equally important to acknowledge their unintended consequences. One of the most pressing concerns is the rise of the online violence, like we will talk today, particularly in disproportionate impact on women and girls. Today's topic is especially important for Indonesia and Bappenas because we put protection of human, especially women and girls, on our midterm agenda and long-term agenda. We have clear stance, like Her Excellency Ibu Gita said, for against violence against women and girls, and we are firmly committed to reduce its prevalence in Indonesia. In our culture, women and girls is important. Women is our mother, our grandmother, our wife, and also our daughter. And we also firmly committed to use technology and to reduce the impact of technology, like AI, evolve, and social dynamic shift, to empower us against the challenge of women, and which is becoming intensely, frequently going up and more complex. This is exactly why today conversation is crucial. Again, the woman is our stronghold of the family. It will affect everything that we have in socially. It offers valuable insight for us as policymakers, Bappenas, to inform and strengthen our policy in making progress. To end my remark, I would like to thank UN in Indonesia again. Also, UN Global Push Asia Pacific, UNOPS, Marco, thank you. And also UN Women Indonesia, as well as Ibu Saima from UAE. We will happy if you come again next stop. And also please invite other from other countries. I hope this edition postdoc foster meaningful dialogue and pave the way for collaborative solution to create safe and digital space for women and girls in Asia Pacific. I wish you all a productive and engaging discussion. And also don't forget that if we empower women, it's empower our family also. Please have a successful dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Agung, for your warm welcome and your guidance for today's event. Next, we will proceed to our main event, the panel discussion. To commence the panel discussion, I would like to invite our moderator today, Marco Scarpetta, UNOPS Indonesia Project Manager and GESI Focal Point, to moderate the session. Marco, time and place is yours.
Hi. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thanks to our RCO and for the initial speaking, and Paco Agu as well for being here with us. I'd like to start this session sharing and building a bit on the data that Gita just gave us. 38% of women globally reported personal experience with online violence. 65% of women know other women who have been targeted. And to conclude, 85% have witnessed online based violence. This very gloomy picture, it comes from a report recently published by the Economist Intelligence Unit. I believe I wanted to start with these figures and data to kind of set the tone of our discussion and to make sure that we all understand the relevance of the topic that we will be discussing today, thanks to our panelists as well. Data tells us stories that help us grasp complex realities, but what we have to make sure that we do is not to forget that behind those data, there are people. And behind the numbers that you've just heard, there are women, youngsters, and girls. And when we speak about these targets, we're speaking about women aged 18, 25 years old. And I think this is very important, and that is also one of the reasons why Young Global Pulse, Asia Pacific, UNOPS, Young Women, and Bappenas have come together today to discuss this, first and foremost, to kind of understand, help us understand the landscapes and the dynamics of online violence against women and girls. What is it exactly? How does it translate, and how does it go from the online world to the offline world? But also, what are the emerging initiatives? What are the UN, for instance, or the government actually doing to tackle this problem that is rising and becoming more and more one of those issues in the society that have to be tackled? And thirdly, we also want to discuss what is the way forward. Very often, we just make assessment and analyze. But what we need to speak about and what we need to do is being a bit more concrete, understand what are scenarios and way forwards that are viable for all of us, and try to work all together, the UN, the government, civil society, to achieve a better results, because the numbers that we shared are frankly concerning. And the digital space is part of today's world, which means that we need to set in place preventive measures before things go sideways. That being said, I'd like to proceed and invite our panelists for today. Our first guest, since 2018, has led programs supporting vulnerable groups, such as women migrant workers and women living with HIV/AIDS, working closely with several UN partners, and today focusing on ending violence against women. Currently working with young women, Indonesia, as a national program officer, I'd like you all to give a very warm welcome and round of applause to Ibu Nunik Nurjana. Welcome, Ibu Nunik. Our next guest is an expert in international human rights, a Fulbright scholar, and an advocate against racial and ethnic discrimination. She has contributed to Komnas Perempuan since 2008, advancing institutional strengthening and international advocacy. I'd like all of us to give a warm welcome to the Deputy Chairwoman of the Commission on Violence Against Women, Ibu Sondang Friska. Joining us as well as a digital rights and internet freedom advocate with a background in computer science and journalism, who has been leading SafeNet work to document and address digital rights violations, being engaged in policy advocacy, is the executive director of the Southeast Asia Freedom of Expression Network, also known as SafeNet. Ibu Nenden Sekar. Welcome, Ibu. And finally, our fourth panelist is a passionate activist fighting against gender-based violence and advancing young workers' rights. She serves as JESI specialist at Emancipate Indonesia, a non-for-profit organization, but she's also the national gender youth activist for UN Women Indonesia. Please help me welcome Ibu Maira. Thank you all to our distinguished panel for being here. And I truly hope that our discussion today is going to be very helpful for the audience here that is with us and also those who are connected via our YouTube channel. Maybe I'd like to begin setting the way forward, discussing a bit the landscape and the dynamics of online violence against women and girls. We can do that with Ibu Nunik from Young Women. Ibu, in your view, let's start with this very broad and generic question. What is violence against women and girls in the online space? And how does it differ from common violence?
Thank you, Marco. It is an honor for me to be here on behalf of UN Women to speak on this critical emerging issue. So, violence against women and girls in digital space, or we often call it as technology-facilitated gender-based violence, technology-facilitated violence against women and girls, or I know that Komnas Perempuan also has its own term, cyber gender-based online, cyber gender-based violence, right? Or online gender-based violence. So, yeah, whatever the terms are, so this is actually any act of violence committed, assisted, amplified through digital technology. And it causes or risks psychological, physical, sexual, political, economical harms to women and girls. This includes a wide range of harmful behaviors, such as non-consensual sharing of intimate images, to online sexual harassment, doxing, sharing personal information, cyber stalking, deepfakes, and many other types of TFGBV. I found in an article that there are actually hundreds types of online GBV. And what set online violence apart from traditional violence is that the speed, the scale, and anonymity. So in terms of speed, online violence or online gender-based violence can reach across borders just in seconds. And the perpetrators can, act anonymously. And it makes accountability difficult. In addition to that, in terms of scalability, abusive content remain online indefinitely. It can, persist, remain online in the long period of time. So this impact, women's sense of security, women's sense of dignity, as well as, limit women's freedom of expression. So I think I will stop.
Okay, now it works. Thank you, Ibu Nonik. Why do you think women and girls are basically among the most vulnerable groups of targets?
Yeah, women and girls are more, disproportionately affected by this kind of violence because digital space are not, separate from structural, from patriarchal structures that already exist in the societies, in the communities. And these harmful norms is simply amplified, replicated online. And in addition to that there is gender digital divide. So many studies indicates that women and girls, particularly those from lower income, from middle income countries, including Indonesia, have lower levels of digital literacy. They also have limited access to secure, to safe online tools. In addition to that, also, women in public life, in public roles, have more, affected by this kind of violence. For example, women politicians, women journalists, or women human rights defenders report more online abuse. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Ibu Nonik. Before I move ahead as well, for the audience here, you see a QR code on the main screen, I believe. You should be able to scan it and then start putting questions anonymously as well on a slide. And once we have gone through the main questions that we want our panelists to respond to, we're going to have a second part, which is you guys from the audience can intervene and ask questions, or you can put them there online and we'll read it out for you. Ibu Nonik, thanks so much for this, to set the way forward and explain a bit to us what violence against women and girls online is. I'd like now to hear from Ibu Nenden. And then you have been in the space, in the field for several years. What would be interesting, I think, for all of us and for the audience as well to understand is how do technologies, platforms, contribute to online violence against women and girls? And also if throughout your years working with SafeNet as well, have you seen any common patterns or forms of violence against women and girls in online spaces in Indonesia?
Okay, thank you, Marco. So actually the answers is like Bu Nunik actually already mentioned it, and I just echoing it, but on how actually the technology and the digital space is like developed without the very minimum representation from women actually. So on how the technology, the digital space now that we are use it is mostly developed by men with perspective of men. And then as Mbak Nunik mentioned as well on how the social structure in the real life is also reflect on the digital space is also happening. And then it's why now how we use technology and how digital space are now working on our world is actually echoing or reflecting about how the social structures. So when we know that not in Indonesia actually, still in global, on how like women still very vulnerable when they are talking in the public space, for example, it's also happening in the digital space. But what I want to highlight is actually on how the business model of the technology, a big tech company, and then on how the digital space develop is also contribute about how the vulnerable and the hostile environment for women and girls in the digital and or even in the technology situation. For example, we can see that a lot of like digital platform is fail to address the issues because the minimum representation from the women or even the victims and the survivor in the development of the technology and the digital space is actually hinder them to develop like a very or the more secure and safety digital space or technology digital platform. So that's the fail of the prioritizing the safety and security for the women and girls for the digital technology is also contribute a lot about how the situation now. And then, as I mentioned earlier about the business model actually, so when we see on how the digital platform, for example, social media, there's a phrase, it's called like profit over people. So on how they really focusing on how they generate profit as much as possible, but you know they just set aside the safety or security for the user. So those kind of like how the technology then contribute to the a very hostile environment for the women and girls. And then when you ask about what kind of like patterns that women and girls are faced on the digital space about the harassment or this kind of like violence, is actually quite a lot. Manulik already mentioned is like more than hundreds kind of type of the harassment or online space, but I can mention at least top five in Indonesia because like SafeNet just like always release like a quarter report and even like an annual report. So maybe later everyone can like access this report. And then we can see that the pattern is mostly about on how the technology itself abused and misused by others. For example, non-consensual intimate image distribution mostly is not necessarily is like the real content or the real intimate content, for example, but on how the victims or the survivors is like threatened that their picture will be manipulated through the technology. So if you already heard about the deepfakes, for example, on how like AI can easily generate kind of like type of like contents is like something that we see is rising for now. So on how the technology is misused to threatening or even to to intimidate women and girls. So that's one thing on how the misuse and the abuse of the technology itself. And then we also see about on how the perpetrator is trying to exploit the digital behavior of the victims actually. Because we know that, for example, doxing, when everyone, if someone can, like exploiting our data that we already published like long time ago, and then they're just like trying to find it and then like collect it, and then they just like reshare it with the new frame. For example, this girl, because they found, for example, my picture when I don't know, like 20 years ago, for example, that I'm not really don't know about how the world work, for example, and then those kind of picture is like found by someone, and then they just like reshare it and then they frame it that you are not really human rights defenders, you are not really talking about the human rights kind of like that, because maybe this kind of like 20 years ago, it's like I'm not really aware about that. So those kind of like doxing, and then on how they also exploit the data for the impersonation. It's like you create a fake account and then it's like, like impersonate you. So maybe there's someone create a new account and then like, oh, it's my account, for example, or it's like framed as my account, and then they just like post like any kind of like content that actually contradict with what my view is, kind of like that. So those kind of like things that we found a lot of it's happened in Indonesia for sure. And then yeah, cyber stalking, cyberbullying, and harassment is those kind of like thing that we can see. But I just want to highlight that those kind of like type of like harassment and violence is usually based on the two type of like violation. This is first is like the violation of the privacy, and then the violation of consent. So those kind of like two type that actually as the root of another type of the violence or harassment.
Thank you, and then for giving us all like very concrete examples, which I think it's super useful for all of us to understand better what type of online forms of violence women and girls experience. Would you be able to tell us as well how does that, like the online violence, actually translate and escalate from the online world to the offline world, and whether it escalates into physical forms of violence? What are the patterns that you've seen there?
Yeah. So the scariest thing about the online harassment is not about the effect that maybe not. It's not necessarily about our digital body, because like people always think that it's only online. It's not really dangerous kind of like thing. But if we see more than that, actually the digital footprint, for example, is actually will affect to the physical life of the victims or survivor. Because now, for example, for the doxing victims, for example, like all the data is published online, and then sometimes is also following with like the incitement of harassment, because like for example my data is already there, and then my address and all where I work, where's my office addresses, and then people just can mention just like, oh, let's go to her home, to her office, and then let's do something to her, for example. And then the cyber stalking cases where someone that really obsessed to the victim or survivor, and then they really know the pattern of her, that how she going to work every day, for example, taking MRT, in which station they are embarked, and kind of like that. And then, yeah, those kind of like thing can really easily escalate to the physical space when even though it started from the online, because sometimes people maybe just like voluntarily share that, I really love to taking MRT from this station to this station, in what time, and kind of like that. So that's kind of like thing that actually can also contribute on how can be abused by the perpetrator. And then, yeah, and then maybe the thing is about the coordinated online harassment. So if it's like happens by not only one perpetrator, but be by a lot of people, because for example the target is like women human rights defenders that really vocal about the policy of the government policy, for example. And then yeah, maybe everyone here knows about the buzzers thing, kind of like cyber troopers, kind of like that. And then she or he is targeted, and then there will be online mob actually that targeting him and her, and then yeah, as it easily escalate to the physical aspect as well, when they can also found a lot of like data, personal data, and even actually that we can see that it's easily for now for Indonesian, the data is easily found in the digital space or even on the dark web, yeah, because there's a lot of data breach cases that actually can be misused as well to targeting someone in the online space and the physical space as well.
Thank you, Nandan. Ibu Sondang, we've heard Ibu Nandan mentioning about the different types of forms of violence, and also how does it escalate from the online to the offline world. I believe what would be important for us to understand as well is what are the mechanisms that are in place, the services available, let's say, in Indonesian, then that are designed to protect and support survivors of online violence.
Thank you, Marco. So First of all, let we all bear in mind that services for handling gender-based violence cases require integrated support and also involve multiple parties, including law enforcement institutions, social services, and even community. So there, so it is important to understand that the integrated criminal justice system should be applied to have good services for the women who want to access the right of as a victim. So it is also applied to the women who are the victim of the online gender-based violence. So what happened in the general violence against women, it also will apply to the online gender-based violence against women. So it is important that to have the approach of integrated perspective, because women victims come from very different background and with different needs, such as maybe women with disability, and then women from the archipelagic place, and also women with HIV, and also women from the online gender-based violence. So it is important to understand the needs and also to understand which kind of services that needed for them. So fortunately, now we have the legal frameworks, which is Law Number 12 2020 on the crime of sexual violence, or Undang-Undang TPKS. The idea of the urgency of comprehensive handling for victims is also the reason why the Undang-Undang TPKS adopt the standard for the integrated services for the women. So right now, the Undang-Undang TPKS guarantee the right of survivors, and also we form a crucial part for the state mechanism to support and protect. So in the Undang-Undang TPKS, it ensure the right to handling, such as access to legal aid, psychosocial assistance, and medical services during the reporting and legal process. The institution must ensure that the survivor can safely and meaningfully access the services. And then there are also right to protections, protection from threat, retaliation, and secondary victimization, including to provide safe house and also temporary shelter if needed. It also guarantees the right to recovery. So survivors are entitled to long-term recovery support such as therapy, trauma care, and also community reintegration services. And then it also recognizes the right to restitutions. Perpetrator may be required to compensate victims for loss of income, medical expenses, or damage to reputation. And also there is access to victim assistance fund. And the right to rehabilitation focus on survivor empowerment, psychological recovery, and restoring personal agency and dignity post-violence. Komnas Perempuan, every year we launch a report on the violence against women trend in Indonesia, and one of the cases that also being noticed is the online gender-based violence. The online gender-based violence, we categorize it on the violence in the public sphere. So Komnas Perempuan categorize for four spheres. First of all is the violence in the personal sphere, and then violence in the public or community, and then violence on the state. Actually three, yeah. But we include the gender-based violence in the public sphere. So in the public sphere, it included the violence that happened in the in the public health, and then in the education institutions, and also the online. So the online gender-based violence is the most highest violence cases that in the public sphere. And then that's one case that being reported actually is the the victims often come with the worried because they are being threatened that their image will be distributed. So because the undang-undang ITE, the ITE law, it only protect the victims if the image is already distributed. But if it's only just threatening, now it cannot be covered. So that's one of the our challenge right now that being given by the victims to report it to the Komnas Perempuan.
Thanks so much, Ibu Sundang. I believe, like among the several and very important points you touched upon, there's one I would also like to remind something about to the audience. Today we are treating, because of time, obviously we don't have the whole afternoon, but just like 1 or 2 hours to discuss this. We're treating online violence against women and girls. But as Ibu Sondang mentioned before, the foundation of the JETSI, which is gender equality, diversity, and social inclusion, is the intersectionality approach, where people's characteristics and nuances, such as, for instance, gender identity, sexual orientation, ethnicity, religion, social class, etc., they all come to play a role. And when we speak about women and girls, it's just a generalization that we're doing today, for instance. But behind that being woman, and that being girl, there are so much more in terms of characteristics and nuances that in certain circumstances may have even additional layer and impact. And I'd like all of us to keep this in mind as well. Ibu Sondang, you've been with Komnas Perempuan for several years, almost 20, I believe. Like, how has the landscape changed through the last 15, 20 years? And what has been so far the response of the government of Indonesia?
Komnas Perempuan starting to receive the cases on online violence, I think it's on 2015. But 2015 is it's the victims who become the victimization by the undang-undang pornography. It's pornography law is in 2015, and then in 2017 we start to record the cases on online gender-based violence. Actually, a woman named BN. She's a victim of sexual violence. The perpetrator was her superior. When she wanted to report the incident, she recorded a conversation between herself and her superior. BN then shared this evidence of record to the family and law enforcement authorities in order to prove about the sexual violence that she is being received. However, BN was criminalized for the act of recording evidence of the sexual violence that happened to her. BN actions are considered to meet the elements of a crime under the ITE law related to the dissemination of content that violates decency. So this case is occurred in 2017, I think, and then at that time there is no law on sexual violence. So in 2022, when the sexual violence law has been enacted, so this kind of cases will not be happen because the sexual violence already recognized at the time in the case of BN. Instead of focusing on BN as a victim of sexual violence, the police officer is focused on the act that distributed, so they ignore the sexual violence cases. So that's why in 2022 we enact the Sexual Violence Act, and then later in 2024, the ITE law has been revised, and there is one particular article, I think it's Article 45, that it stated that the act of distributed the sexual image or information, it cannot be punished if the act is to defend the cases. So that's why one of the improvement that also being triggered by the TPKS law, sexual violence law. So there is improvement for the legal landscape, but I think there are many work still be done because the perspective of patriarchy, and then sometimes it's still hamper how the law enforcer to to examine the cases.
Thanks so much, Ibu Sondang. Ibu Nunik from UN Women. We have heard just now from Ibu Sondang what are the initiatives that the government have put in place, and also how the landscape has changed in the last 15, 20 years. I think it would be very interesting for us to understand as well, what are we doing, the UN, and what is, in this particular case, UN Women doing in collaborating and supporting the government of Indonesia to tackle and address the issue of online violence against women and girls.
Yeah, thank you, Marco. So UN Women works with various key stakeholders: government, non-government, private sectors, tech companies, civil society organization, even youth networks to prevent and address online GBV. In addition to that, we also promote digital inclusion as well as gender equality in technology sector. One of our contribution is the development of youth guide to online gender-based violence. So this is actually a guide designed by young people for young people. So we are collaborating. Well, we collaborated with 30 for 2030 networks. So consist of young activists, young feminists, entrepreneurs from Asia Pacific. So we developed this guide to provide information, understanding for young people on their rights online, as well as to recognize online abuse, as well as take steps to protect themselves from online abuse. And this guide has been already circulated, used widely, and in Indonesia, UNICEF has used it as a reference to develop localized version, and we also, with UN Women support, we ensure its quality, its accuracy, and inclusivity. UN Women also work with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to develop AI-powered chatbot, gender-sensitive AI-powered chatbot called SARI. So SARI is an acronym for Artificial Body for Indonesian Migrants. So this is attached to the Safe Travel mobile app run by the ministry to provide information for Indonesian citizens who travel abroad. So with support from UN Women, we try to increase its accessibility of this mobile app, the travel app, to women migrant workers, to Indonesian migrant workers, particularly women migrant workers who experience gender-based violence. So this chatbot is trained with gender sensitive in mind. That's why it responds non-judgmental, non-judgmental responses to the users, and it also provides multiple local languages in Sundanese, in Javanese. So it's more accessible. We also launched a program called Digital Heroes in 2024. So this is actually a program aims for women, for Indonesian women, in 15 province in Indonesia. So we train 45 women in 15 province in Indonesia on essential digital skills as well as STEMs. So the idea is to increase their awareness, of course, on how to design, web design, on ethical technology use. And after the train, we expect them to develop landing pages with topics on gender equality. And actually, a few weeks ago, we launched Link Women. This is a program supported by LinkedIn. We will try to reach out to train around 2,000 women, including students, job seekers, as well as career returnees on digital skills, as well as on workplace readiness. So our goal is not only actually increase women employability, but also ensure that women can access or women can have more thrive in the workplace that promote gender equality. So in terms of women in politics, this is also aligned with UN Women mandate to promote women's participation in politics. So UN Women also work with youth in 2023. So during 16 days of activism, we collaborated with 16 young people to provide them with training, to develop digital storytelling and also content to tackle online gender-based violence and also misinformation in politics, digital hoax, something like that. So yeah, that's some of our activities, our interventions that currently going on.
Very, very inspiring to hear young women initiatives and also how you're able to overlap and work within the social component, the digital component, and including the JETSI aspect as well. For the audience as well to be aware, after our Q&A, we're going to have a moment where you will be able to ask directly questions as well to our 4 panelists, personally as well, and to hear more about the initiatives that each of the organizations that our panelists represent here today are working on. So please stay with us afterwards as well and take advantage of this opportunity. Nunik, one more question, because you now referred specifically to activities that are implemented by UN Women. On a more generic sphere, let's say, how do you think can global institutions such as the UN support national governments in adopting gender-sensitive digital policies?
Yeah, so I would like to reference this to our to the UN mandate. It's the UN Human Rights Council resolution. So these resolutions actually mandates a UN organization or global institutions to conduct evidence-based study on technology-facilitated gender-based violence, as well as its impact to women and girls. So there are also other initiatives that UN organization or a global institution can contribute. For example, first in terms of policy, as I mentioned earlier, that it is important that we have evidence-based policy, so we can provide the government with the development of policy and regulation that based on evidence. So this is important. And the second one is in terms of facilitate dialogue UN organization can facilitate dialogue with, diverse key stakeholders, tech companies, governments, a civil society organization. Ibu Nenden previously mentioned that online GBV caused roots on, lack representation of women and survivors' voices in the development of digital platform, for example. So this is a space where UN can contribute to facilitate the dialogue and ensuring the voices of vulnerable groups, women survivors, women and girl survivors, including those marginalized group, vulnerable groups, to be heard in the development of the digital platform. So, in addition to that, UN organization can also promote survivor-centered approach in the response to online GBV. So it is important that government or civil society organization applies principles of survivor-centered approach in providing services to the victims. So, in terms of normative, I think UN organization can also ensure government to develop laws that in line with global commitment such as CEDAW or sustainable development goals.
Thank you, Nonique. And then we just heard Nonique mentioning the frameworks within which we actually move. And leveraging your expertise on digital rights violations, I'd like to ask, what are the most persistent barriers that are faced by survivors of online violence in accessing justice and support?
Okay, yeah, actually there's a lot of like barriers that faced by the women survivors actually. So the first one is possibly about the social stigma and the victimizations against women and the victim survivor. And how we know that now, even not only about the online gender-based violence, but the gender-based violence itself, and how the victims is usually stigmatized as it's your own it's your own it's because your own act. So you become the victims. Even on the online gender-based violence, for example, people or society tend to have this like social stigma and victim blaming because they say that it's your problem, it's because your own act, kind of like that. So the social stigma and victim blaming, it's then create the situation on how the victims are afraid to report their cases, right? So they really feel ashamed because they don't want, like everyone knows about the case, they don't want their parents know the case, so it's kind of hard for them to find any support actually, or even to report the case. So that's the first one. Maybe it's still related about on how the social structures in the society itself. And then the second one is like Bu Sondang mentioned, even though we have the UU TPKS for now, but we still remain lack of the technical regulation, Bu Sondang. So it's not easy to implement the undang-undang if we don't have this like technical regulation. And then the other problem is the capacity of the law enforcers. So even though we have the undang-undang, we have the undang-undang peraturan turunan or the technical regulation, but if the law enforcers have no perspective of victims or even the knowledge about the gender-based violence, it's kind of hard for the victims to report it to the police. So, and most of the time, the victims, even though they are reported to the police, they will be face the re-victimization. They will become the new victims of the police itself because the police have no capacity to handle this kind of like cases. And then, so we have, I can say that the UU TPKS itself is not enough. And we found a lot of like problematic articles on the IT law that actually can create a new risk for the victims when they are reporting, or even, you know, like in Indonesia we have this called like no viral no justice, right? So even though you already report it to the police, but the police will not like act quickly to your cases if it's not like, you know, become the public discussion, for example. And then there's a lot of like cases that the victims share it to the social media to gather more support from the public. But then the victim will face these articles in the IT law for the defamation, for example, yeah, because they mention the perpetrator, for example. So those kind of like situation that can that faced by the victims, and then it's kind of, you know, like become the barriers for the victims to access the justice. Yeah, this kind of situation that's kind of.
Thank you, Nanden. Mayra, we come to you as a youth activist engaged with a non-for-profit organization, but also with young women, and we kind of described so far, as you've heard, what violence against women and girls online is, how it can escalate to the offline world, and also preventive measures that are being put in place by the government of Indonesia, by young women and other multilateral organizations. We mentioned before how violence against women is on the rise, and as we discussed with the audience as well, in 2024, it has cases of online gender-based violence have increased by a factor of 4 compared to 2023. And indeed, young women aged between 18 and 25 are the main target group. So the first question I'd like to ask to you is, what do you think are the key factors contributing to this rise?
Okay, thank you, Marco. First of all, I'd like to honor every all the speakers here for, answering all of the questions perfectly. Actually, I will, because all of the questions already answered, so I'll answer more of a story from the youth. So when we talk about a key factor, it's a lot, or what my fellow youth would like to call it Wild West, is because this is a perfectly blended mix of the patriarchal norms that Banunik already mentioned, and then we have the anonymity that always translated as a form of protection for the perpetrators. And then we have the absence of law siding with women and minority, and the presence of law siding with the powerful ones. And also the digital advancement that are not followed by the digital regulations also. And this is worsened, very, very much worsened by the ignorance, or maybe I have to say that this is the structural, systematic ignorance to women and minority, like Bu Sondak have already mentioned about women with HIV, women, indigenous women who are more prone to have the online gender-based violence, and this is not followed also by the education, because you said there is a rising events happening in online, but actually in reality, not to mention it's rising, but it's also everybody, most women, maybe most young women, most women and girls even don't know that they're being violated online. They don't even know. They don't even know. So even the regulation, even the education is not really dispersed to all people.
Thanks so much, Mayra. And I think that is the privilege of having you here also to tell us basically what are the barriers and what do you think basically are the key factors that are contributing to this rise. How are young people mobilizing basically against online gender-based violence? And what do you think is the support that they need to face this wave of violence?
Okay. So mobilization from the youth activists, I had to say about the good news first. Youth are also connected. They're also connected. I am in part of a CSO, and I have my CSO sisters. And even when we're talking about one issue led to online gender-based violence, we don't only collaborate with our CSO sisters, but also we collaborated with maybe SafeNet, we collaborated with another CSOs, another, that maybe don't really seem to connect, but this collaboration sometimes happen because it can build intersectional discussion, because that's the key to make, to combat online gender-based violence. But what I like also to mention is about not only about the CSO. CSO is something for me. It's more for me. So privileged I am to be in a part of CSO. But when we talk about someone outside the CSO, we have actually a communities and subcultures. I think that is very important. Why? Because uniquely, this is a very uniquely Indonesia. Very uniquely Indonesia. Indonesia, we're not very individualistic, right? Basically, we're living in communities, we're living in subcultures, we have one hobbies that somehow unites us in one organization, in one fan club, in one fandom, actually. And these people are gathering together and have their own language to combat online gender-based violence. I actually have a story, a very bizarre story, but I will save it later because I know I have the time. But one story that I like to mention about the subcultures and communities that I like to mention is, for instance, is punk. Punk bands and everything. When we talk about punk bands, what are the stigma? They love to smoke, they love free sex, they love, alcohol and everything. But there's one system in punk called straight edge. So every punk band with a cross in their hands, on their left hand, called straight edge. That means they don't do smoking, they don't do alcohol, they don't do free sex. And this is very important. And all those punk bands that we thought will rebel everything against the law will follow the rules, will respect those people with cross on their hands. Okay, I respect you. That's one language that doesn't transcend to mass. That doesn't transcend to mass. And all of the communities, I would like to mention about many things, such as maybe anime lovers. They have their own thing, and they have K-pop. K-pop, they have their own things. And I have a story about these fanfic writers that also have their one thing to combat online gender-based violence with their language. And very much for me, that is very important to capture, because we're only talking sometimes, only we talk about, we have CSO, I am in the CSO, and also in the privileged cities. But we have these people that I think very much effectively capturing and combating online gender-based violence with their own thing. But the thing is, one thing that we have all of this, we have one objective to combat online gender-based violence, but we are lacking of unified strategy. We're lacking of unified strategy. The thing is that, so therefore we made a campaign, campaign, making this solution, that solutions, but it is fragmented. Despite of its effectiveness, it is kind of fragmented. So therefore I would like to appreciate sometimes like some kinds 16 HKTP, 16 HKTP. This is like one of the things that we can, this is a strategy to unify the voice, but I hope it can, we will have more on that later, so far in the future.
Thank you, Mayra. As a youth, what policy changes would you want to see to ensure young women's safety in digital spaces?
The policy changes, maybe, I don't really have time to talk about what is the specific policy changes, but I hope that all the policies that are made is made from the intersectional discussion. It's coming from the right place, which is in intersectional discussion, where we involve women and girls from all aspects. And I'm talking not only about women in cities, not only talking about women in rural, suburban, and everything, like feeling demographic, but I'm also talking about psychographic. Maybe we have women and in LGBTQ groups, and we have women and indigenous people, and they have, or maybe women with disabilities, they have a lot of different views about the policy changes to combat online gender-based violence, and even our effort and also our problems also seems different, even though it is the same, online gender-based violence. So I think it is important that we make a policies that is coming from the right place, which is the intersectional discussion from not only from the grassroots people, but also from all women in all aspects.
Thank you so much, Mayra. It's very, the conversation I hope and I believe is getting very interesting. Maybe we have one last question before handing the floor to the audience, because I'm realizing that there are many questions that are coming online as well. One last question for you, Ibu Sondang. Just to kind of wrap it up, thinking about the stakeholders coordination. So what is the current coordination between key stakeholders to address this issue? And how do you envision that collaboration to happen in the future?
Okay, so collaboration or coordination is very luxurious actually, yeah, because we have ego sectoral, and then we have our own program. So it is, especially if we are talking about the including all the regions. So that's why since 2003, Komnas Perempuan developed this concept. It call it SPPT PKKTP, Sistem Peradilan Pidana Terpadu Perempuan Korban Kekerasan. Jadi Integrated Criminal Justice System for Women Victims of Violence. So right now we are kind of developing a concept how to develop services for the women, specifically on gender-based violence, online gender-based violence victims. So because it should have a mindset and also same basic baseline. What is the right of the victims, and then what is their special needs, and how to make a referral systems among the stakeholders. So, for examples, in 2022, Komnas Perempuan have this documentation about the need of the online gender-based violence victims. So the need for the victim is very various. It's not only legal services or safe house. It vary. It's like they need to have a consultation about sexual and reproductive access. They also want to know about the how to have a psychosocial, psychological support. Yeah. So and then another one want to access the medical and also to integrate it to the community. So it's a very various needs, especially if you combine it with the intersectional approach. Yeah, so people, women with disability, of course, they have different needs with women in victims of indigenous people or conflict situation. So that's why we kind of now developing this concept how to develop the integrated services for the victims of the gender-based online violence. But nowadays, about the coordination, of course, we have like some kind of annual meeting, but sometimes it's very tricky. Yeah, sometimes it cannot be scheduled. Sometimes it's based on the cases. Yeah, and then if there is a cases, then we have this coordination meeting. But that's why we need to make it more structure in the to improve the services for the women.
Thank you, Ibo Sondang. Very interesting and much appreciated as well. I believe now we can start engaging our audience, online, offline. I already have a list of questions here with me. We have heard so far our panelists to discuss basically and speak about what gender-based violence is and clarify that. They explained how online violence can actually translate and escalate into offline violence as well. We've heard about technologies and platforms, how they are conducive as well to progress, but also what are the risks that we have to take into account considering the groups that are most exposed to online violence, being women, girls, youth. We have heard from Ibu Sondang and Komnas Perempuan what are the initiatives that the government is taking and how the landscape has changed through the last 20 years, what are the policies that have changed, and also how aware the government is and what is happening on a daily basis to tackle this issue. And we've heard as well from Nunique and young women how the UN, specifically young women, but also how the UN and multilateral organizations are actually supporting national governments and what they could be doing even further in the from now onwards to address online violence against women and girls. We have heard from Mayra as well, what does it mean being a youth, being a young woman as well, being an activist, and being aware as well of the needs that the youth and the young community here, and what are the needs, if not the policies, but what are the needs that the community, the young community have in Indonesia, and possibly how to address that. And finally, we've heard about possible coordination paving the way forward for a better and safer digital space. This is a bit to wrap it up here and thanking our panelists. I'd like to hear from the audience whether there's any question now. We have a number of questions we received online, but I encourage you all to raise your hand, quickly, briefly introduce yourself, and just ask the question. Over to our... Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Nova, I'm museum consultant. And thank you for having this event. This is very important events for, I think, for girls and women. I'm very much curious, in case of OGBV, do you have any data or do you have any evaluations or research on which cities are prone to the OGBV? My raw assumption will be Jabodetabek because that's where the internet connections and the women and the girls are very active with the social media. But if there is an evaluation in which cities that are more prone, I would like to hear about that. And I would like to know what kinds of initiative that either the Komnas Perempuan or the UN or the other organization has taken place to connect with schools, for example, or with the women's communities. I'm very active in women communities, especially on a single mom communities where they are very much exposed actually, like this range targets of women who is age around 25 until 45, they're very much exposed in social media as well. And they're often receive OGBV. I was wondering if there are any, training that have taken place for women within this category, and how, if it is not massive yet, how these kinds of communities can reach for support or assistance to educate their communities, basically. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Very interesting twofold question. I've seen Ibo and then from SafeNet nodding while you were asking the first question about data. So maybe we can hear from you and then, and maybe from Ibu Sondang case or Nonique in case there's particular data from the government as well.
Okay, thank you, Kanova. So based on our data, but maybe it's not necessarily answers which part of Indonesia that more prone to the OGBP, but it's based on the cases that reported to us. So, but maybe it also not it's biased because, like for example, in our data, the region that that have a lot of cases, or the most cases is in West Java, and then East Java, and then Jakarta, and central of Java, mostly in Java, because yeah, the access of the internet mostly, and I believe that the social media user mostly spread around Java. But then we so need to know that it's maybe possible that because the access to the information for the support is necessarily spreading or distributed only around Java. But we also found that the cases is also happening in Papua, in North Kalimantan. It's necessarily it's like everywhere in Indonesia actually for the OGBV. So that's the first question. And then the second question actually is a lot of like initiative like led by the community as well is already there. The training for the digital literacy, even for the digital security as well, is already there. But maybe I know that it's not. I mean, like it's in the small communities, in maybe for example in Gorontalo. I believe there's a community that started this initiative to have the discussion about the digital literacy and the online gender-based violence. But it's like very how say fragmented. I don't know. I mean, like it's only in Gorontalo, for example, but it's not really connected to the other part of Indonesia. But this kind of great idea on how we can like leverage the initiative from very small community to the more community. So I'll stop there. Maybe Mbak Sondang and Mbak Nunik have another answer.
Okay. So the data, yeah. So I think on online gender-based violence is a cross-border actions, yeah. We cannot really detect which kind of area that more prone than another area. But I want to highlight what Nenden said. It tends to be in the area with the internet access is more accessible. Then it will be the data will be more recorded, and then also about the program what happened in the school. So maybe Komnas Perempuan, is we don't have program in school because school is I think it's will be tackled by the Komisi Perlindungan Anak Indonesia, Commission on the Child Protection, because Komnas Perempuan area is actually for the adult women above 18. But we have program is to develop gender-based education or training, but it's directed for the badan usaha milik negara, is a private public, yeah. Yeah, state-owned enterprise. Yeah, we have a problem with we have a program with them. So in gender-based curriculum, we develop how to respond to the cases of gender-based violence which happen in their company, yeah, and then how to receive the complaint, how to to make sure that the women have their right as an employee, and then it's including the right for their maternity, and then the right from if they are become the victims of the domestic violence, and how is it can be how to be addressed as a company. So I think there's my question.
Thank you both. I go with one question that we received online, and then I give the floor back to the audience here. Mayra, maybe you can tell us if you feel responding to this. I think you may have an interesting view on this. How can we encourage people who witness technology-facilitated gender-based violence to take action on digital spaces to prevent it from escalating to physical spaces?
Oh, now we're talking about the bystanders, actually. Bystanders. And this is actually very interesting because when we talk about online gender-based violence, sometimes we only talk about the victim and the perpetrators, right? Only the victim and the perpetrators. That's why online gender-based violence sometimes feels like more like an individual experience rather than societal battle, right? But this is for me the same like corruption. Maybe this is not only about the police officer, not only about the KPK or maybe about the corruptors, but also the whole thing, the whole people in Indonesia were really affected because as a bystander, maybe now we're talking about bystander, but actually, especially to women, we are also at the threat, under the threat that maybe we sometimes get it too. For instance, when we talk about tech facilitated gender-based violence, I actually have experienced that myself with my organization. There's someone in our Zoom when we make online discussion, and then this someone just spamming us with a lot of pornographic visuals, and then we have to cancel and postpone all of the discussions. And to prevent that, I believe that all bystanders, maybe us in this room, or maybe people who can access this, have all the privilege to reporting. The thing about maybe when we talk about reporting, sometimes we think that this is not, this is not useful, from saying this is not very useful because once I report something, maybe they're not actually really suspended, not suspended directly, but that's okay. That's the thing about bystanders. When we unite together, when we let's go unite together, and we simultaneously report them, we can actually make the account suspended. That's the technical part. And this is the second one. We can also report it to maybe I'm not saying authorities, maybe we can report it to the SafeNet, for instance. For instance, I report it to the SafeNet because they know better about how we can, handling all of this, handling all of that. And as a bystander, it is also, I think it's very useful for us to know when we report something, and you from SafeNet will guide to how could this be, and how is the process, and knowing that process is very, very important as us as bystanders. So I think for what I'm saying at last is, as bystanders, please don't think that this is only something inaccessible. Yeah? Reporting is not something inaccessible, technically or maybe individually through SafeNet. This is very accessible, very easy. Even in SafeNet, I've heard also you can, if you report and you are afraid that your identity is exposed, it will not, because you can choose to have not giving the consent of your identity, so you can stay anonymous while you reporting. And that's the thing about bystanders. That's the thing about you're seeing this, you have to report this. I think that's all.
Thanks so much, Myra. I think very inspiring, and that is a key concept, reporting. Formally, informally, among your group of friends, with SafeNet, publicly as well. We need to make sure that our voice is heard, that the voice of the victims are heard as well. If you are in a position of sort of power, social status quo, use your voice to support others and support victims as well, to move ahead and report whatever they have been experiencing. We will only be able to create a culture of reporting and digital safety, etc., once we all start raising our voice and saying, this is not right, this is not correct, you should stop doing this. This is a form of violence, online violence. And it is key for all of us who are involved, victims or ally, to take a step ahead and put a bit of our sense and efforts to support victims. Otherwise, we won't be able to move forward. I give the floor back to the audience to hear whether there are more questions. Don't be shy, raise your hand. It's also an informal gathering as well. We want to hear your voice and your opinion as well.
Yeah. As Ben Nenden said, is there someone who want to share their experience having online gender-based violence if it's not triggering for you? Maybe how to...
Or who are having witnessed or heard about stories of online violence. We can let the audience gather their thoughts. And in the meantime, I'll proceed with some more questions that we have from the online audience. This one could go to SafeNet again or to any other of the panelists. How do you engage with tech platform companies to prevent tech-facilitated GBV? What works to have them on board with the effort?
Yeah, so actually most of like a big tech company have their own policy regarding the online gender-based violence actually. So I know that at least the biggest company, now they have this kind of like program, it's called like trusted partner or anything that they are collaborate with civil society organization that that can have this where the civil society can escalate the cases quickly, more faster than the common people if they are reporting the cases, for example. So this kind of like program that they are release or initiate is quite helpful in some aspect because yeah, if it's like if it's related to the case by case, is quite helpful and powerful because like SafeNet, for example, as the trusted partner for some big tech company, we can like escalate the cases when the victims reported to SafeNet, and then we are escalated to the platform to take down the content, for example, or to suspend some account that allegedly as a perpetrator, kind of like that. So it's quite works in that way. But when we're talking about more into the upstream factors, for example, their policy regarding the content moderation, it's kind of hard actually because we're trying to engage with them, to trying to influence their policy because a lot of like in a lot of cases the policy is always directed from the global policy on the headquarters, not from the local context, local base. So when we're trying to influence the policy to ensure that the local context matters to them, it's kind of hard actually because they should consult this issue to the global team, for example, yeah. So that's one thing. And then even though we know like this representative here in Indonesia, but sometimes it's not necessarily they can like make a decision quick as possible about that. So there's those kind of like bureaucracy inside them is also something that we can say is quite challenging. But and then we also found that there's still a lot of like factors that usually create the platform more vulnerable. For example, about the transparency, about the how for example how many cases that they are received from for the content moderation, for example, or for the content takedown. They always publish the report in the quantitative manners, but we cannot see like from those numbers. It's like how long it takes for one content is to be taken down, for example, or what kind of like content that they can act instantly, or what kind of a content that they should like, like taking more time, for example. Those kind of like data that we cannot find in their transparency report, for example. So those kind of like things that we found still challenging when we are trying to engage with a tech company. But yeah, we also appreciate sometimes the trusted partner program or any collaboration with civil society organization. It works, but it's mostly like, in Indonesia it's called like kind of like we are fighting the fire, not the root of those kind of fire, like apa namanya, mademin api ya, on how we can just like trying to solve the problem in the, yeah, yes, not really solve the roots of the problem. So yeah, so that's, I'll stop there.
Thank you, Nandan. I do have, I think we are start running out of time, but I want to ask two more questions that I've gathered from the QR that we shared with you. Maybe one for you women and one for Komnas Perempuan. Nunik, how can international cooperation and donor support be directed more effectively toward the issue in the global south?
Yeah, thank you. So thank you for the question. So I think I would like to refer to what I have said earlier about what a global institution or UN organization can contribute to address online GBV. So global institution can facilitate, of course, a multi-stakeholders dialogue and with various key stakeholders, with donors, with development partners, with government, as well as also with tech companies to ensure that their policies, for example, data governance framework or digital strategy in the governments are in line with the international commitment, with the global commitments. So we have CEDAW, we have human rights, standards at the international level. We have also SDGs. So we really need to ensure that these, the development of policies, of guidelines, strategies at the local or national level should be aligned with this commitment, with this international or legal frameworks. So that's one thing. The other thing is, of course, that we can also provide sort of a platform for knowledge sharing. So we have, so many countries that, for example, in Mexico, for example, in other parts of the world who have, best practices, good practices in, tackle online GBV. So UN organization can facilitate this process, provide knowledge sharing, good practices, best practices, what works and what don't work in addressing online GBV.
Thank you, Nunik. One more, maybe for Komnas Perempuan, Ibu Sondang. Do we have an integrated hotline for the victims? And if we don't, is there any plan to build such an integrated hotline system in Indonesia?
Right now, we every service provider have their own online, their own hotline services like KPPPA, Ministry of Women. They have SAPA 129, and then Komnas Perempuan also have a complaint mechanism. Referral systems, but it individually, yeah. But right now we also have to develop a synergy database. It's like to synergize data on violence against women from three sources. It's from the Komnas Perempuan, and then from the data from the Minister of Women, and then also data from the Forum Pengada Layanan, is a women service providers. So just last week we have this workshop in Bogor. We're trying to to synergize what kind of data that we can provide nationally. And then also from that data, hopefully we can achieve some kind of, align work in receiving the complaint or cases from the victims. So because there are so many challenges because Komnas Perempuan have their own perspective about what kind of cases and then how we documented it, and then service provider, they also have their own challenge, and also the Ministry of Women. So that's why we are working now to synergize the data, and also hopefully in the end it can also have a integrated service provider.
Thanks so much. Maybe we want to hear from Maya as well on this last question.
Weighing in from Busondak, actually there's a lot of youth communities that are gathering their resources to make a hotline also. I will mention, but not limited to like Samsara, Awas KBGO, Net. Maybe you have a whole network about youth communities with that. And we also have in youth, we also have carilayanan.com. Carilayanan.com is made, not youth, basically is Jakarta Feminist. They made a whole platform to basically just searching about what are you in need for? What are you in need for? Are you experiencing KDRT? You can find that in carilayanan.com. Do you experiencing KBGO by your fellow coworkers, for instance? There's also a youth communities for that. Like there's an app for that. There's a youth communities for that. If you so maybe if you feel like sometimes I have to say this. Sometimes when we want to report our report things to the authorities, maybe for the bigger maybe from the bigger institutions, sometimes we feel like I think I will get blamed for this. I think so many things. So maybe if you want to feel more closer, or maybe something more, more communal, more communities, you can, reach out to those youth communities also.
Beautifully said. Thanks so much. I believe unless there's any other question from the audience, and feel free to raise your hand if that's the case. I see one hand there. Can we give the mic on the third row? Thank you.
Hi everyone. Thank you for the panels. I think it's a very interesting discussion. My name is Emmy. I work for the education program. I think we could agree that the prevention would be very crucial as well. So my question is more like, is there any like accessible resources that we can tap freely accessed by public, especially for youth, that they can train themselves, or they can have the knowledge, like, how to act or how to behave in digital space? Because we know that, as young as start 9 or 10, young people already, have access to the internet and the digital space. So, yeah, my question is there any resources that we can, any of the program have been developed? Because I'm aware that the UN Women have several programs talking about trainings for youth, for women. But yeah, is there any resources available that we can share? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I actually want to refer or to ask you to go to the toolkit that UN Women has developed. So I mentioned earlier that one of our contribution is the development of youth guide to online gender-based violence. Unfortunately, it's still in English. It's being translated into Bahasa, but it has been finalized yet. But please go to our website, UN Women website, Youth Guide to Online Gender-Based Violence. It provides tips, strategies for young people on how to, to recognize online gender-based violence, on how to become bystander, active bystander, step by steps, and how to become, to prevent or to initiate activities related to online gender-based violence. So it's very informative, and yeah, I think you can go there to dig more about what's in it related to prevention of online gender-based violence.
Okay, maybe this is helpful. Yeah, I know that Indonesia has launched various digital literacy program. Under their program is National Digital Transformation Frameworks. I'm not really sure if they have a specific content for girls, but I think you can search in there because I think like 2 years ago, the Ministry of Communication and Information at the time, the name, they invite Komnas Perempuan to give speech in one of their segment. But I think that's it's not a long-term program. Yeah, it's just like a programmatic. But I think if we searching there, maybe there's still some material that can be accessed. Thank you.
Yeah, so SafeNet have this initiative called Awas KBGO. So Awas, so we have the social media and then also website awaskbgo.id. So we also gather a lot of like references regarding to the technology facilitated gender-based violence there. So it's still on the process of revamp of the website and will be relaunch it on the few weeks later. So you can stay tuned to that. But I also recognize that some organizations that focusing on digital literacy for kids, yeah, for example, ICT Watch, and then ECPAT Indonesia, and the other organization that I believe they have a lot of like resources and can be accessed publicly.
Thank you. I've seen before one more hand raised, row 4. Can we have the mic passed to the same left column on the 4th row? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, I'm Fira. I'm a university student. So here's my question. So how can we ensure that individuals experiencing online gender-based violence not only know where and how to seek help, but also to feel safe and confident that they're reaching out to the right authorities? And especially in the climate where stigma and victim blaming are still prevalent, especially this is actually something that I encounter in real life as well. For example, one of my friends experienced that, and I think it kind of hit her roughly, but me and also my other peers don't know what to do, so I think it would be very helpful if you guys can enlighten me in this stuff. Thank you.
Ira, okay. Thank you so much for coming and thank you so much for sharing. I may have not really a solution, but maybe an advice. So thank you so much for being with your friends, because that's my first advice, that always be with someone that really understands you, that really supports you, and don't be afraid. Is this happening inside of this university or inside of the university? So I have to tell you that I don't know what your university are, but universities like UI or maybe IPB, they have this organization called Girl Up. Yeah, maybe if your university have those kind of clubs, you can report to them, not report to find some solution, maybe not report to find the perpetrators, maybe through as simple as finding the emotional support. Because I understand that having to experience online gender-based violence means you, first, you're feeling alone, you're feeling disengaged, right? You're feeling disengaged, and you're feeling that if you want to tell this, maybe they will blame you. And if you want to tell this, maybe people think that, well, this is not big enough to report or something. And the only thing that that can, that can validate your feelings is actually a group or friends or people with the same experience. And funnily enough, that's how unions, that's even how International Women's Day emerged, because there's women with the same experience, feeling the same, feeling the same urge, have, then gather together. I actually have one story. This is actually really, really quite bizarre. So I'm sorry for that. So I want to revisit my thing about the communities, how communities and subcultures are important. So in the internet, we have that one subculture called fan fiction writers. Okay, I think you have heard of this. Yeah, fan fiction writers is something that, this is a writers of a novel about writing about fictional characters and so on. Sometimes they have the genre mostly romance and everything. And there's one genre that is very bizarre. It's called male pregnancy. Yeah, you heard it right, male pregnancy. They reimagine men, yeah, they reimagine men to, going into labor, having to be pregnant. This is very bizarre, very bizarre. But for some reason, this male pregnancy is then coming out to not only in the circle of the fan fiction writers, and then it's coming out to a resistance move. How? Let's say there's this one guy in internet replying to me, for instance, replying to me a very misogynistic comment, a very, very misogynistic comment, or maybe a sexual harassment, borderline sexual harassment online. So there will be women or someone in between who support me. In a way, they're saying to the men, saying that, oh, you will do. Okay, oh, you're pregnant now? Oh my God, that's why your emotions are like this. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Or there will be one woman again saying, I'm so sorry guys, this is my husband. So this is, he's pregnant for 6 months now. So reimagining that men have to go through womanly experience to combat their misogynistic comments. You can, when men are misogynistic, they will feel so humiliated by the womanly experience that they have to face, right? So that's not the best example to, not the best example to combating online gender-based violence, but for me, that is a very great example that what communities and what subcultures can do to make you feel not alone, make you feel not, blame or anything, right? Even just only fun fact, back then we have the protest with Electric Blue, Indonesia Darurat, Do you know who popularized that? The one who popularized that is one boy from community of anime lovers. So it starts from anime lovers, from this one boy, and then it comes out bigger and bigger from anime fandom 1 to anime fandom 2, and then it goes on to national. It's how powerful communities is. Just find your community, find your subcultures. I believe you'll find that. I hope that makes sense. Thank you.
Thanks once more. Is there any more question? I think that we run out of time. I'm getting signals from the back of the room. If is there any other hand raised? If not, I think that we can wrap it here. Thanks to these 4 amazing panelists. I think this was a unique experience, at least it was for me. I hope it was for the audience as well, those of you who are here and those who are connected in YouTube. I've seen more than 20 questions. Unfortunately, we won't be able to take them. But I do encourage you to stay with us right after the closing remarks that will be done by Ahmed, the regional coordinator of the UN Global Pulse Asia Pacific, and take advantage of these few more minutes to ask maybe those questions to our panelists. I do believe it's a unique experience because over here we have heard voices coming from women and experts working and representing different pieces of our society today. So we have the UN, but we have the government as well, we have the CSO, and we have the youth activists. What I think is the red thread that makes us all on the same page is that we're all passionate about this. We have that they are also experts. Some of them have been working on this field for many, many years. So I hope that this discussion has been fruitful and that gives you all insights and key takeaways to bring with you outside of this premise. It's beautiful and nurturing and inspiring when we have this discussion. But as I always say, we need to, whatever we're taking with us, we need to make sure that somehow it goes to others. We can't keep it as precious as it is. We can't keep it for ourselves. We need to share it. Friends, family, public, so on and so forth. Online, offline, share it, discuss what you've heard today, the responses and the message given by the panelists. It's very important that you make this extra effort and take this extra step to make sure that knowledge is shared with other people as well, and everybody is aware of what is happening in the digital space, because we are experiencing this as one thing, as one people. So it's very important that we do take this additional step. With that, I thank you once more. It was amazing to have you here. And I would encourage the audience to give like a big round of applause to all of them. Thank you, thank you. And I give the floor back to our MC. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marco, and all the panelists. You may return to your seats. And I think we have discussed extensively on the issue of creating online safe spaces and beyond. We have heard a lot of stories, discovered some subcultures, and also the avenues for searching and for women and girls to face a more safer online environment. And then, to close this event, I would like to invite Ahmed El Said, the regional head of the UN Global Pulse Asia Pacific, to give his closing remark. Ahmed, time and place is yours.
Thank you very much. So, huge thanks from UN Global Pulse for the distinguished panel. Our speakers, Marco, our moderator, and all the UN agencies, and also our partners and hosts, Bappenas, representatives of the government of Indonesia in this event. I wanted to conclude with some key remarks, and maybe also this aligns a bit with some of the findings that we heard today and some of the key messages that we heard today as well. Indonesia has made significant strides in digital transformation. There is significant growth in that space in Indonesia, especially over the past decade. And this really requires a robust digital safety framework that can be enforced. We heard many stories today about mechanisms for that and programs for that, but that all needs to be scaled across the country. This cannot be done without multi-stakeholder partnerships, and I was very happy to see the diversity in also speakers representing civil society, government institutions, and youth activists, and I believe youth leadership to this conversation is very important. We really need to address the roots or the root causes for this issue and all the disparities associated with it, because if we want to really address the issue of online violence, that is really linked to many other issues offline that will need to be addressed. This is a very dynamic ecosystem, you can see. This is a multi-layered problem. So all multi-layered problems like this need a multi-stakeholder response. So government leadership and coordination, civil society involvement, private sector involvement with development partners and the UN, and youth leadership to the dialogue is also very, very critical and important. We need to really work on creating digital spaces that are safe by design. And I took note of what was mentioned earlier about how many digital spaces are not really designed in the right way and are looking more for profit in the beginning. And that's something that can be clearly addressed. Global Pulse, as part of the UN family and in close partnership with the government of Indonesia, are happy to continue to address this issue together with the many stakeholders that are involved. And we're happy also to continue and see how we can design a joint UN offer that responds to this challenge. Thank you again for being here and staying till the end. And I won't delay you any further from the next networking segment. Thank you for coming and looking forward to seeing you in the next Pulse Talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed. And before we proceed into the networking session and everybody grab their share of coffee breaks, we would first have a photo session. So I would like to invite again Ahmed, Agung, and all the panelists into the front of the stage so we can do some photo. Marco, you can join too. And for all the audience, please be seated because we are also going to have a bit of a photo with everyone here. Okay, so everybody came first. Mr. Photographer, you ready? Okay. Okay, so everyone, you can face into the back of the room. You can see the camera. Boleh menghadap ke belakang semuanya. So yeah, yang masih ini boleh duduk. So it's gonna be a bit of a room, okay? Okay. Please be seated. Please take your seats, everyone. Okay, and 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, great. Thank you very much, everyone. And with that, I would like to close today's Pulse Talk. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. Yeah, also the photo in the front. Di atas panggung. Yang enggak sama. And for the money. Yeah, for the audience, you can please proceed to grab your share of coffee breaks and do some networking if you may. Thank you very much.